The voice in your head is not yours. It's the echo of a lie that your ego created to protect you from the truth. Have you ever stopped to think, who is really in control of your life? Is it really you who decide what you feel, what you want? Or are you just playing a role? A character carefully built by your ego to survive in a world that requires masks. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, has spent his whole life trying to show us that what we call me is actually a carefully scripted illusion. And the scariest, you believe in it. Every day you wake up, look in the mirror and say, "This is me." But who is this me? Is it your true essence? Or is it the persona, the social mask you learn to wear to be accepted, praised, beloved? Jung said that the ego is not the center of the psyche. It is just a point of reference, a reflection, a fragile bubble floating over a deep ocean of unconscious. What if what do you think you are actually is an invisible arrest? Have you ever caught yourself acting automatically, saying yes when I wanted to scream no? Pretending to be well when everything is collapsing inside? This is the persona trap. The more you fit, the more you move away from who you are. And the ego loves this theater. He was trained for this. He lies to you all the time, saying that this mask is your salvation, when in fact it is your ruin. Carl Jung's philosophy is not light, not comfortable. It is a dirty mirror placed in front of the soul, a brutal invitation to individuation, the process of becoming who you really are, integrating the shadow, confronting the complexes, plunging into the collective unconscious. Jung didn't want you to be happy. He wanted you to be whole, because only when you face what was denied, forgotten, hidden, do you start to really live. But the truth hurts. And that is why the ego lies. He builds narratives, stories, identities that protect you from the pain of facing the abyss. He tells you, you're like that, but this is just an old script, inherited from childhood, culture, trauma, the desires of others. You are not who you think you are. You are much more, or maybe much less than you believe, and most of your life has been lived within a carefully rehearsed lie. You live in automatic, relate to automatic, want in automatic. The world has taught you how to perform, and you became an expert in it, but something inside you started screaming, a strange feeling of emptiness, a discomfort that does not pass, a heavy silence at times when everything should be well. This is not anxiety. It is not tired. It is your soul begging to be heard. It's the self trying to break the ego bars. It is the call to awaken. And now I ask you, if the voice in your head is not yours, so who are you? And now I ask you, if the voice in your head is not yours, so who are you? If this question touched you, if something inside you rummaged while listening to those words, don't ignore that sign. Because this discomfort is not random, it is the beginning of transformation. It is the silent call of the unconscious saying, enough of living in the lie, enough of running away from you. From the moment you begin to question the origin of your identity, the process has begun, and I want to walk with you on this journey. This channel exists for this, to be more than a content, to be a space for awakening, healing, and reconnecting with your true self. And if you feel that you are collapsing inside, if everything seems to be crumbling, understand, this may be the beginning of your liberation. The old man needs to die, so that the new can be born. And you don't have to go through it alone. In the comments below, leave your prayer request. Yes, prayer, because although Jung's deep psychology teaches about the mazes of the soul, there are times when spiritual silence is so great that only prayer can cross. And here in this space we will pray for you without judgments, no masks, because your pain matters, because you matter. Write there in the comments what is weighing in your heart, or simply types, "Now for me." We will read. We will welcome. We will deliver your soul in silence and intention, even without knowing you, because there is a deeper connection that unites us beyond that screen. If this video spoke to you, enjoy now, not only to support the channel, but to say to the algorithm, This content needs to reach other lost souls like me. Subscribe, because this is just the beginning. In the next video, I will show you how the collective unconscious shaped your personality even before you know what it was like to have choices. And believe me, you will recognize yourself in every word. Share with someone who is in internal conflict, someone who lost themselves trying to be perfect, someone who needs to remember you are not what the world forced you to be. It's much more, and this discovery can change everything. You live trying to be someone that people like. You repeat phrases, opinions, behaviors. You don't even know where you came from. And deep down, you feel that there is something wrong. A silent feeling that you are pretending your own life. This feeling, this emptiness that accompanies you at times when everything should be fine, it's not a coincidence. It is a deep symptom. Jung would call this a sign of the unconscious, a muffled cry of the self, his true essence, trying to break the jail of the ego. But what is this ego anyway? He's not his enemy. It is a necessary construction, a bridge between the inner world and the external world. The problem begins when this bridge becomes a prison, when the character you created to survive becomes the only role you can interpret. You were taught early on to seek approval, to shape, to silence, to be good, kind, intelligent, productive, to please. And every time you were praised for it, your ego reinforced the idea. That's how I need to be loved. And over time, the persona, this mask that Jung describes as the social face, took over. You got used to living out, and he completely forgot what he lives in. But there is something no one told you. The more you try to be perfect for others, the more you get away from yourself, your true identity, the one that exists without being validated. You move away from your soul. And that's why you feel this invisible exhaustion, this tiredness of existing, this feeling of being present but absent from yourself. Because living only by ego is like watching your own life from outside, as a viewer. Powerless, suffocated, repetitive. How many times did you catch yourself smiling, but inside were you shouting? How many times have you accepted invitations, tasks, relationships, just not to look strange, ungrateful, or weak? How many times did you say it's okay when was nothing okay? This is the performance of the persona, and the most painful. That's when you start to believe this is all you are. A set of programmed reactions, a collage of external expectations, an automated voice that repeats, "Don't disappoint, don't confront, don't be rejected." But let me tell you a dark truth which you may never hear. This desperate attempt to be good, of being accepted, is a form of ancestral self-treatment. You are cheating on who you are every day in exchange for some affection, some belonging. But at what cost? The cost of living a life that is not yours, the cost of ignoring your shadow, everything you rejected in yourself because they said it was ugly, inappropriate, or dangerous. Carl Jung said that no one enlightens imagining figures of light, but making darkness conscious. And this darkness is there, inside you. You feel, you avoid, you denied, but she is acting every day behind her fears, her vices, her broken relationships, her chronic anxiety. As long as you don't look inside, the ego lie will continue to run your life as if it were true. And maybe right now you are wondering, but how do I leave it? How do I find out who I am behind everything I learned to be? And that is the right question, because when you start asking, the unconscious begins to answer. The individuation process, the way to become whole, does not start with certainty, but with sincere doubts, with the discomfort not to recognize yourself anymore, with the courage to dismantle the persona and look at what is behind her, even if he gives, even if he scares. And I know it's not easy. No one prepared you for that. No one has taught you how to deal with inner chaos, with the repressed impulses, with the inexplicable sadness that arises out of nowhere. But it is precisely in this nothing that the key is. Because what you have avoided for so long is often what will free you. The pain you feel is the portal. It is symbolic. It is a warning. And if you learn to listen to it, to interpret it with the lens of Jungian psychology, it is no longer enemy and becomes a guide. Maybe you have been crying in silence for years. Perhaps you have gotten used to this character who lives in function of others. You may even be afraid to find out who you really are because it fears not being loved. But let me tell you, true love starts when you choose to go home, go back to you, even if the whole world tells the opposite. Now I want to invite you to do something powerful. Share in the comments what hurt you most in this video. It can be with a word, a sentence, or just a "I feel that way." If you want, write, "I got tired of pretending," or "I want to go back to me." Write with the heart. This is a safe space, without judgments. We read, we pray, yes, we pray together, because this journey is not only psychological, it is also spiritual. If you felt this video touched you, leave your prayer request in the comments. It can be anonymous, it can be simple. The intention matters, and we will pray for you. By cure, by reconnection, for truth. Enjoy this video if it spoke to your soul. This helps him reach other people who are also lost within themselves. And you subscribe to the channel, because in the next video, we'll dive even deeper into the collective unconscious and understand how you were programmed to get away from who you really are, long before you know what it was like to have a choice. Carl Jung said, "The ego is just a small island in a vast ocean of unconsciousness." And this ego, he lies. He lies all the time, and lies well. He convinces you that you are this social image you have built, this voice you repeat, this personality that pleases, that organizes everything, that tries to maintain order even when everything inside is in ruins. He created this persona, this carefully carved mask, to protect you from the world, to give you a place to make sure you were accepted. And for a while it might have worked, but the problem is that you believed in this mask. You have identified with her so deeply that she began to forget the soul behind it. And from that moment, it all started to crumble silently. Because while the ego keeps you on the surface, your soul screams from the depths. Only you learn to ignore this call. He learned that feeling too much is weakness, that doubting himself is insecurity, that changing is instability. But what if it is exactly the opposite? What if this question you feel, this discomfort that insists on returning, is your essence trying to emerge? What if all this concern is only your unconscious trying to bring to light what was repressed for so long? The persona is necessary. We all have it. Jung didn't say we should destroy her. He said that we should integrate it, make it conscious. But the problem arises when the persona takes the place of the self. When you are no longer a living soul and become a social role. When you start interpreting your own life. You wake up, follow the routine, fulfill tasks, smile in the right places, speak as they expect you to talk, think like most. And yet, when lying down at night, something inside you is restless. It is the absence of the true self. It is the emptiness of those who got lost trying to be what others wanted. You were not born to just be this image. This identity you present to the world was built from fears, trauma, poorly digested experiences, parent and social expectations. Each time you heard, "Not so, this is ugly, man does not cry, woman has to behave, you need to be strong," a part of yours has been hidden, thrown into the basement of the unconscious. That's when your shadow was born. Everything you are, but you had to deny to adapt. And the ego, like an anxious guardian, protects this structure. He prefers the security of lies to the pain of confrontation with the truth. But the price of this protection is too high, because living without contact with your soul makes you a ghost of yourself. You start to react to the world instead of living from the inside out. And the most perverse, it seems normal. This is what everyone does. The whole society is a persona theater. And so, when you start awakening, you begin to ask yourself, why do I feel so displaced? Why no one seems to be really alive? Do I only feel my existence? And that's where the real journey begins. the Jungian journey, the search for individuation, the process of becoming whole, integrating the lost parts, courageously looking at the complexes who command you, recognizing the archetype of the injured child, confronting the shadow and letting the self emerge. It is not a quick way, and it's not an easy way, but it's the only way that takes home. Back to you. You begin to realize that that pain you feel, that tightness in your chest, that desire to disappear, are messages, symbols, invitations of the unconscious. Because Jung has taught us that everything that is not brought to consciousness manifests itself as destiny. That is, until you look inside, you will continue to repeat patterns, destroying relationships, sabotaging opportunities, silenced silence, and calling it life. And maybe, as long as I say that, you are remembering situations where you felt just that, an internal discomfort that no one saw, a tiredness that had no explanation, a feeling of being stuck in a role that no longer fits. This is the soul trying to go back, trying to break the theater, trying to break the persona's spell. But the ego resists. He will try to convince you that changing is dangerous, that you are well, that it is not worth digging so deep, and that's exactly where you need courage. Courage to get lost, courage to dive, courage to undress the masks, because the pain and keeping pretending will become one day greater than the fear of finding yourself. And when that day comes, you don't run away, that you do not anesthetize, that you don't pretend anymore. Because there is a place within you where the truth lives. And that truth doesn't scream, she whispers. She reveals herself in silences, dreams, repetitive patterns, tears that come for no reason. And I know you may have never heard it before. Maybe no one told you that everything is okay to be lost. That is part of the process. That confusion is also a sign of awakening. That collapse is often the beginning of reconstruction. But here, on this channel, you will hear. Here we'll talk about what hurts, of what is denied, then society hides, because only when the pain finds meaning does it cease to be suffering and becomes the way. So if something here touched you, writes in the comments, "I got tired of pretending," or "I want to find my soul again." Speak what you feel, even if it's hard to put in words. Write with your heart, like a letter to yourself. And if you want, leave your prayer request. We will pray for you. Because this journey need not be lonely, because even inside chaos, there is a sacred place waiting to be inhabited. You. Subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and enjoy this video, not only to strengthen this space, but to reach other people who are also stuck within themselves, living like islands, not knowing that there is an entire ocean waiting for them. And in the next video, we will continue this crossing and reveal what the collective unconscious has hidden from you for generations. We live in a society of avatars. On Instagram, at work, even within our own relationships, everything became representation. Each plays a role, a character carefully manufactured to generate validation, acceptance, and belonging. We edit the photo, choose the right words, share only what is beautiful, controllable, palatable. But inside, chaos shouts. The pain pulses. The soul writhes in silence because she knows none of this is real. You know, something inside you realizes that the more you perform, the less you live. Carl Jung called it self-alienation, a progressive distancing of its truer essence caused by identification with the persona. And the persona, although it seems harmless, just a social mask, becomes a psychological jail when you start to believe that's all. When you reduce your existence to the image others expect. When you silence your shadow, anesthesia your pain, and disguise your fragility to maintain the illusion of control. But this illusion, however well built, has a very high emotional cost. You feel tired, exhausted, even after bed. It's not just physical, it's psychic. It is the fatigue of existing as a lie, to have to support an idealized version of yourself every day, all the time. At work, you need to look confident, competent, aligned. In relationships, it needs to be understanding, strong, desirable. On social networks, you need to be happy, productive, bright. But where are you all this? Where is your spontaneity? Where is your truth? What happened to that inner voice you heard in childhood? The one that told you what was right before the world began to scream the opposite. This pain you feel, this knot in your throat, this tightness in your chest, this feeling of not fitting is not weakness. It is your soul trying to scream under a false identity. Jung has taught us that the soul communicates by symbols, by inner images, by emotional states that seem not to make rational sense, but make total sense within the language of the unconscious. Every time you feel that you don't recognize yourself anymore, every time you catch yourself asking, "Why am I living it again?" is the unconscious trying to wake you up. The social persona is not by itself a problem. The problem begins when it becomes a substitute for the soul, when the ego falls in love with the image of oneself and rejects everything that does not fit this image. Fear, doubt, anger, sadness, everything is pushed to the bottom of the unconscious. And do you know what happens when we push emotions too long? They come back. But they come back distorted. They come back as chronic anxiety, insomnia, emotional disorders, affective addictions, approval dependence. We are getting sick collectively, and no one talks about it in depth, because admitting that we are representing, that we are empty, is something that threatens the system itself, a system that feeds on your disconnection, of your insecurity, of your hurry to adjust. Modern society was built on the repression of the soul, the culture of performance, constant comparison, search for results at any cost. All this reinforces the persona and suffocates the self. How many have you ever been editing your own pain to make it acceptable? How many times have you stopped crying, screaming, saying, "Enough, why did you think it would make you look weak?" But Jung said, "He who looks out dreams. He who looks inside awakens." And looking inside is uncomfortable, yes, but it is the only way to get out of this collective hypnosis. Because what is at stake here is not just your happiness, it's your truth. The self, this psyche-organizing center that Jung has studied so much, is constantly calling you back. But the call is subtle. It does not compete with the noise of networks, nor with the pressure of success. She speaks softly. It appears in dreams, in the lapses, the mistakes you repeat. It appears in that conversation that destabilizes you, that mirror that shows you a tired look, in that loneliness that beats even surrounded by people. And if you silence the world for a moment, you will hear the pain of your inner child, that part of yours that still hopes to be really seen. You will hear the anger of your shadow, which has been rejected so many times that now hides behind masks. You will hear the longing for yourself, asking to return to the surface, not to please, not to be perfect, but to be whole, to really live, not only socially survive. And maybe right now all this is going through you in a way that words don't explain. Maybe you are remembering times when all you wanted was to be yourself, but you were afraid. Fear of judgment, rejection, losing the place it has achieved. But what's the point of maintaining this place if you can't completely exist in it? If this has touched you, write in the comments, "My soul is suffocated," or "I want to live beyond the mask." Share this pain, this doubt, this desire to go back to you. Here we listen to you. Here there is no right or wrong. It has a process, and if you want, leave your prayer request, because sometimes what is missing is not an answer. It's someone who pray for you in the silence of the soul. Enjoy this video if it crossed you. This helps this message reach those who are going through this same disconnection. And you subscribe to the channel, because in the next video we will keep diving on this Jungian journey and show you how the shadow you reject is silently deciding everything you live. You were not born that way. You didn't come to the world trying to please, shut up, hiding your anger, shaping yourself to fit what you expected from you. This was learned, conditioned, implanted in you in a subtle but constant way. You were trained to be accepted, to be nice, functional, sociable, predictable. From an early age, he learned that crying was wrong, that screaming was ugly, that feeling too much was exaggeration. And so, piece by piece, your soul was pushed to the basement of the unconscious. The child you were, spontaneous, free, wild, was being silenced by commands such as, "Be strong, don't make a tantrum, you need to behave." What you call you today, it's a survival construction. A persona that you were forced to wear so as not to be rejected, to protect yourself from the pain of not being loved as it was. And this persona grew up with you. It gained compliments, rewards, respect, but inside, the void grew together. Because every time you were loved, because it is something that is not, a true part died a little more. Carl Jung called this the disintegration of the self, a break with all of the being, caused by excessive identification with the mask. And the scariest, the real you are buried under all these layers, but it's still there, waiting to be remembered, hoping you to stop playing and start listening. He doesn't scream. It does not force the door. He whispers in moments of silence, in dreams, in the repetitions you don't understand, in relationships that frustrate you, in the choices you make without knowing why. Its essence did not die. She only fell asleep. He hid behind the armor you created to endure life. You feel it. Feel when you look in the mirror and no longer recognize yourself. When he listens to his own voice and she seems decorated. When he is surrounded by people but he keeps feeling alone. Because what is missing is not external presence. It is internal presence. Yours. That of yourself, that of your deepest self, what is behind the ego, the persona, the social roles. This one I was muffled, but it didn't disappear. And now he begins to stir. It begins to knock on the conscience door and ask to return. But coming back requires courage, requires deconditioning. It requires unlearning everything they taught you about being someone. Jung said that what you resist persists. And you have resisted yourself for too long. Each time it pretends to be well, when in fact it is about to collapse. Each time it says yes for fear of losing. Each time it swallows the desire to cry, to say no, to run. You it feeds the character, strengthen the lie, but the body feels, the mind charges, the unconscious responds. He does not accept to be ignored for long. And if you do not listen to the intuition, you will hear for the pain, for anxiety, for the crisis, for the loss. But the good news is, the memory process has begun. Just the fact that you are here, listening to it, is a sign that the self is trying to go back. And when he comes back, he doesn't come as a cute idea. It comes as an earthquake. He destroys what is false, collapses the disguises, rot the floor. Because only then can you rebuild something that is true. It is not about becoming someone better. It's about remembering who you were before you forget yourself. This memory is not rational. It doesn't come from outside. She is visceral. It manifests itself when you start to make room for what was excluded, when you stop running and start diving, when you allow yourself to feel everything that has spent your life trying to control. Because it is in gross feeling without filter that the soul lives. This is where the way is back, and he is not linear, he is not cute, he is confusing, intense, scary, but deeply liberating. You will start to notice signs, dreams that seem more vivid, situations that are repeated with new interpretations, people who before you supported now suffocate you, places that made you sense, now they bored you. This is the self reorganizing the house. It is internal life by saying, I exist, and I no longer accept living in silence. It is the unconscious starting to communicate with you through symbols, archetypes, images, emotions. And you don't have to understand everything at once. You don't have to have all the answers. The Jungian path is not about control, it is about delivery. It is about making room for the soul to occupy its right, because there is nothing more devastating than living a lifetime being the version that others have designed in you. But there is nothing more beautiful than the moment you remember, and it starts to go back. If this is making sense inside you, even if you can't explain with words, comment down here, "I want to remember who I am," or writes, "I'm coming back to me," leaves this recorded as a statement to the universe, as a sign that you heard the call. If you want, leave your prayer request too. Here, we welcome, we pray, we walk together. Because this crossing is deep, but you don't have to do it yourself. Enjoy this video if it touched you. Share with someone who is suffocated in his own armor, and you subscribe to the channel, because in the next video we'll open the shadow door. That part you hid to be accepted. But today, you want to be seen, because without it you will never feel whole, and that is what you deserve, entirely. Can you look in the mirror and say, "I know who I am"? Or is everything you see there is the reflection of a well-trained mask, a set of gestures, expressions, and behaviors that you have learned to repeat to be accepted, beloved, validated? Because the truth is that many of us spend our entire lives representing papers we don't choose, inherited papers, imposed papers, roles that, at some point in childhood, were associated with emotional survival. And since then you have been shaping, adapting, shrinking. But in the process of pleasing, how many parts of yours had to leave? Do you remember the first time you swallowed the cry to not look weak? Or this time when you laughed unwillingly just not to break the mood? These small betrayals of oneself, accumulated over the years, form the foundation of the persona. And the more you repeat, the more you get from your essence. Carl Jung said the persona is not who you are. She is just what the world wants to see. And what happens when you spend too much time embodying what the world expects? You forget who is off stage. This deconstruction of the persona is not something that happens from the outside in. It is an internal, silent, and deeply symbolic process. It involves getting in touch with everything you avoided feeling: fear, guilt, shame, sadness, anger. It involves facing the moments when you stopped saying what you thought, or pretended to be well to keep the image of strong, mature, spiritualized. You think you are evolving, but it is actually protecting yourself from yourself with a new disguise. Now more refined, more subtle, but still a disguise. And this mask is heavy. She sucks her vital energy. It requires constant effort, because keeping a persona requires control, and the unconscious does not deal well with control. It requires expression. It requires truth. The self, its deepest identity, cannot flourish while you are attached to the illusion of those who believe it needs to be. And as much as the ego fights to keep everything under control, there is a time when the internal conflict becomes unsustainable. But the soul begins to get sick. And here come symptoms: anxiety without reason, feeling of emptiness, loss of meaning, relationships that do not fill you, choices that always seem wrong. Maybe you are living this now. You may feel you are tired of representing. As much as you have achieved what you wanted, a stable relationship, a good job, a certain apparent peace, there is still a nuisance, a longing for yourself that you don't know how to name. This is yourself knocking on the door. And it doesn't come to reinforce the mask. It comes to collapse what separates you from you. It comes to free the parts you have abandoned along the way: your suffocated intuition, your sleeping spontaneity, your just anger, your legitimate sadness, your forgotten truth. Jung said that meeting with the self is an experience of deep shake. It's not beautiful, it is not light, but it's real, and real is what your soul wants most. But for that, you need to be willing to go down, to descend to the basements of the unconscious and face what is there. Face the versions of oneself that were exiled, the beliefs that programmed you, the conditions you inherited from the family, culture, religion. Look, for example, that you may never have been free, just well-conditioned. And it hurts to realize that. It hurts to realize that the decisions you made, the paths you followed, the loves you chose, were often defined by the persona, by the need to correspond, to fit, to feel part. But it hurts even more to keep living like this. It hurts more to wake up every day and have the feeling of always being a little out of place. Because you are really. It's out of your mind, out of essence. But that can change. And the first step is this. Question the image in the mirror. Start wondering honestly, who am I when no one is looking? What do I think when I'm not trying to please? What do I feel when I don't need to look strong? What does my soul want to show me in this silence? These questions are dangerous to the ego, but they are vital to the self, because they break the persona spell. They break the enchanted mirror where you see yourself, but do not recognize yourself. And if you feel that you are at this point, tired, confused, exhausted inside, know that this is not weakness. It's the beginning of the return, the point where you stop running from you and start listening to the voice you've always been there, but you drowned out for fear of not being loved by who you really are. But you are. You are more than enough, but this cannot be said by anyone. It has to be felt by you, rediscovered inside, and it only happens when you allow yourself to be whole with everything you are, light and shadow, reason and instinct, persona and truth. If this video is making sense to you, comment here, "I want to see myself really," or "I'm tired of hiding." Write what is hurting, what is waking up inside. If you want, leave your prayer request. We will pray for you. Because this journey is not only internal, it is also spiritual. Enjoy this video, share with someone who is suffering in the image itself, and subscribes to the channel. In the next video, we will open the doors of the shadow, that part of yours that was denied, but that keeps the key to your freedom. And without her, no mask will make you feel whole. If this video spoke to you, if at some point you felt that I was describing exactly what you could never explain with words, then don't let it go. This was no coincidence. Your soul is trying to wake you up. And here you found a safe space for this awakening. Subscribe now on the channel, not only to follow the next videos, but to walk along this journey of deep self, knowledge, Jungian psychology, and reconnect with who you really are. This channel is a shelter for those who have tired of living on the surface. And if you have come to the end, it already says a lot about you, shows that you are ready to go further. So comment below, "I got tired of living on the ego's lie." Write this phrase as a symbol, a ritual, a call to begin to act, and leave your like now, because it helps this content to arrive in other people who are also stuck in a character that no longer represents who they are. People who need this touch of real. And now, before you leave, click the next video that is appearing here on the screen. In it, I will show you how the collective unconscious programmed your personality long before you know what it was like to have your own will. If you found it all deep, the next video will move even more with you. I find you there.